Two wildfires are burning out of control across the Pacific Northwest tonight, and together they have scorched an area larger than the entire city of Chicago. In southern Oregon, the Wright Spring fire has torn through more than 50,000 acres, and firefighters have contained exactly 0% of it. 400 miles to the north, in the mountains of Washington, the Little Giant fire has exploded past 120,000 acres, driving families off the shores of one of the state's most treasured lakes at a moment's notice. More than 170,000 acres combined, both barely held, both still growing. And on one of them, this crisis has already claimed a life. A reminder of what these numbers actually cost, beyond the acres and the evacuation maps, in the lives of the people sent to stop them. We'll get to who and how, because it's the heart of why this fire matters. This is where the Pacific Northwest stands right now, fire by fire, and why the crisis is deepening rather than easing. If you want the real, sourced picture of these fires as they develop, subscribe. It helps this coverage reach more people who need it. The Wright Spring fire began on August 5th in Klamath County in south-central Oregon, about 2 miles west of the community of Sprague River on the Fremont-Winema National Forest. Within days, it became one of the most dangerous fires in the state, not the largest, but among the deadliest in its behavior. By the second week of August, it had grown to more than 51,000 acres at 0% containment, with roughly 650 personnel assigned. Fire officials described its behavior in the most alarming terms available to them: crowning, running, and spotting. Crowning means the fire has climbed into the tops of the trees and is moving through the canopy. Running means it's advancing fast across the landscape. Spotting means it's throwing embers ahead of itself, starting new fires in front of the main front. When all three happen at once, a fire becomes almost impossible to stop head-on and nearly impossible to predict. That unpredictability is what turned deadly. Jason Ensign, a dozer operator, was working the fire when it made a rapid and unexpected run. The rapidly shifting flames cut off his escape route. A dozer operator's job is among the most essential in wildland firefighting. They carve the containment lines in the dirt that every other tactic depends on, often working closest to the fire's edge, in heavy equipment, on ground no one else can reach. Ensign was doing exactly that work when the fire turned on him. Oregon's governor ordered flags lowered to half-staff in his honor, and his death is not an isolated tragedy this season. In the same stretch of days, 2 pilots were killed when their helicopter crashed fighting a fire in Utah, and earlier in the summer, 4 firefighters died in Colorado. The people fighting these fires are dying at a rate that should stop all of us cold. It's worth sitting for a moment with what a dozer operator actually does, because it's easy to picture firefighters only as people with hoses. The dozer operators are the ones who build the line, scraping a strip of bare earth down to mineral soil, wide enough that a ground fire runs out of fuel when it reaches it. That line is the backbone of nearly every containment strategy. It means working a heavy, slow machine right at the fire's edge, often at night, often in smoke so thick the operator can barely see, on steep and broken ground. There is very little margin in that job. When a fire behaves predictably, an experienced operator can work safely within it. When a fire does something sudden, a wind shift, a rapid run, an ember cast that ignites the escape route, that margin vanishes in seconds. That is what happened to Jason Ensign. Not carelessness, not inexperience, but a fire that moved faster than the plan allowed for, in a season when the fires keep doing exactly that. To understand why this fire killed someone and still can't be contained, you have to understand the ground it's burning on and the conditions driving it. The fire is burning through timber and closed timber litter, dense forest with a thick carpet of dead needles, branches, and debris on the floor. That fuel, cured bone dry by a hot, rainless summer, is exactly what a fire needs to climb from the ground into the canopy and start crowning. Once a fire is in the crowns, it stops behaving like a ground fire and starts behaving like a moving wall, throwing embers half a mile or more ahead of itself. The fire was especially active pushing east and southeast, crossing Bliss Road near Round Mountain, with crews scrambling to build anchor points and dozer lines to stop its advance toward the communities of Chiloquin and Sprague River. That's the fight Jason Ensign died in, the effort to keep this fire from reaching the towns in its path. The evacuation picture tells you how serious the threat to those communities became. Klamath County issued a cascade of orders. Numerous zones under Level 3 go now, the highest there is, meaning leave immediately and do not stop to gather belongings. More zones under Level 2, be set, and still more under Level 1, be ready. 2 Red Cross shelters opened, in Chiloquin and Bonanza, for people and small animals, and the Klamath County Fairgrounds took in livestock. When you see a county open livestock shelters, you're looking at ranch country, where evacuation means moving not just a family but a herd, and where a fire threatens a whole way of life, not just a house. While Oregon fought Wright Spring, Washington was losing ground to something even larger. The Little Giant fire ignited on July 16th in Chelan County, in the rugged mountains about 30 miles northwest of Leavenworth. It started at around 74,000 acres of eventual footprint and just kept climbing. By August 12th, it had reached more than 122,000 acres, and containment stood at just 5%. The cost of fighting it had already passed $42 million. Its behavior has been, in the words of fire officials, extreme, crowning, uphill runs, long-range spotting, and group torching, where entire clusters of trees ignite at once in a burst of flame. This is a fire in steep, remote, high mountain terrain where crews often can't safely get in front of it. They can only work the edges and defend what's in the fire's path. The growth trajectory alone tells the story. Discovered in mid-July, the fire climbed steadily for weeks, and in one recent stretch, it added some 11,000 acres in a single day, while its containment barely moved off the floor. That's the signature of a fire that has outpaced the resources thrown at it, and it's happening during a national fire year so severe that the country is at preparedness level 5, the top of the scale, with crews and aircraft fully committed across dozens of major fires. A fire like Little Giant, burning in difficult country far from population centers, ends up competing for those stretched resources against fires that are threatening more homes more immediately. In a maxed-out season, the remote monster in the mountains often has to wait its turn. And what's in its path is the reason this one matters to so many people: Lake Chelan. A Level 3 Go Now evacuation is in effect for the Chihuahua River drainage, the Entiat River Valley, and portions of both the south and north shores of Lake Chelan, one of Washington's premier lakes, a deep glacial fjord ringed with homes, resorts, orchards, and vacation communities. A fire bearing down on the shores of Lake Chelan isn't threatening empty wilderness. It's threatening one of the most treasured and heavily populated recreation corridors in the state. Here's a detail from the Little Giant fire that should make everyone watching angry, because it's so avoidable. At one point, as crews fought the fire with both helicopters and fixed-wing air tankers making water and retardant drops, those aircraft were forced to stop flying. Not because of weather, not because of smoke, because boaters and other recreationists were out on Lake Wenatchee, in the airspace and on the water the aircraft needed to operate, and their presence made it unsafe to continue. Understand what that means in the middle of a 120,000-acre fire. Aircraft scooping water from a lake to drop on a fire fly low, fast, and repeatedly, skimming the surface to fill their tanks. A boat in that operating area is a catastrophe waiting to happen, and the only responsible choice is to ground the aircraft until the area is clear. So while the fire kept running through the mountains above Lake Chelan, one of the most effective tools for slowing it sat idle, because people wanted to be out on the water during a wildfire. It's the same lesson that shows up on fire after fire, whether it's drones over a burning city or boats under an air tanker's flight path. In a wildfire, the airspace and the water are part of the firefight. When the public gets in the way of it, even innocently, even just wanting a day on the lake, the fire wins that window. Every minute those aircraft are grounded is a minute the fire advances with nothing above it to check it. Step back from the two fires, because the pattern connecting them is the reason this matters far beyond Oregon and Washington. Both of these fires are burning in what's called the wildland-urban interface, the zone where homes, cabins, ranches, and recreation areas push up against dry forest and brush. It's the fastest-growing kind of development in the American West, and it's the most dangerous place to be when a fire runs. The homes on the shores of Lake Chelan, the ranches around Sprague River, these aren't remote outposts. They're where people live and vacation, and they're exactly the kind of places that a crowning, spotting fire can reach faster than anyone can defend them. If you live anywhere near forest, grassland, or brush, and a growing share of the country now does, you live in a version of this zone. The single most useful thing you can take from these two fires is about time and about escape. Jason Ensign, a trained professional in heavy equipment, died because a fire moved faster than expected and cut off his route out. If that can happen to an expert on a dozer, it can happen to a family in a car. So know your evacuation routes before you ever need them, know your zone, and when an order comes, go immediately. Because the entire lesson of Wright Spring is that the window to escape can close without warning. And keep the airspace clear. Don't fly drones near fires. Don't take boats out under firefighting aircraft. The tools that protect your community only work if the public lets them. There's a broader reason these fires keep reaching communities, and it's worth understanding because it isn't going away. For more than a century, the standard practice was to suppress every wildfire as fast as possible. It worked in the short term, but it also let enormous quantities of fuel, dead wood, dense undergrowth, overcrowded stands of timber pile up on the landscape, fuel that in a natural cycle would have burned off in smaller, cooler fires over the decades. Add a warming climate that dries that fuel out earlier and more completely each year, and add millions of new homes built into the forest edge, and you get exactly what the Pacific Northwest is living through now. Fewer small fires, more enormous ones, burning hotter and reaching further into where people live. Little Giant and Wright Spring aren't anomalies. They're what a fire season looks like when a century of accumulated fuel meets a modern drought. Let me be straight about the scope of this before we close. This is not, so far, a mass casualty event for the public. No residents are confirmed dead in either fire. The loss so far is Jason Ensign, a firefighter, and that loss is enormous. But it's important not to overstate the civilian toll. The evacuations, by every indication, have been working, and people have gotten out. That's the system succeeding even as the fires grow. It's also not a mystery in the conspiratorial sense. Little Giant was caused by lightning, a natural ignition in a dry forest. Wright Spring's cause is still under investigation. There's no plot here. There's a landscape primed to burn and the ordinary ignitions, natural and human, that set it off. The danger is the dryness, not some hidden hand. And it is not over. Both fires are still growing. Wright Spring sits at 0 containment, Little Giant at 5%. The forecast across the region calls for continued hot, dry, and at times windy conditions, with the added danger of scattered dry thunderstorms that can spark new fires without dropping meaningful rain. This crisis is deepening, not resolving. Here's the bottom line as of this recording. The Wright Spring fire in Oregon, more than 51,000 acres, 0% contained, Level 3 evacuations around Sprague River and Chelan, and one firefighter, Jason Ensign, dead. The Little Giant fire in Washington, more than 122,000 acres, 5% contained, Level 3 evacuations on the shores of Lake Chelan, and a price tag past $42 million. Two fires, more than 170,000 acres combined, both barely held, both still moving. If you're anywhere in the fire regions of Oregon or Washington, treat this as your warning. Sign up for your county's emergency alerts now, tonight. Learn your evacuation zone and take a Level 1 notice seriously. It's the lead time that saves lives. Keep a go bag packed and your vehicle fueled, and make a plan for animals in advance if you have them. If you're told to leave, leave, because these fires have proven they can outrun the people trying to stop them, and stay out of the way of the aircraft and crews. No drones, no boats near operations, because they're fighting for your community, and they can't do it if the public is in the airspace. The next stretch of heat and wind will decide how far these two fires run. Spare a thought tonight for the crews still on those lines in Oregon and Washington, and for the family of Jason Ensign, who paid the highest price this fire season has yet demanded.